Good morning all. Today we are going to discuss about temporal fossa, infratemporal fossa and mandible. This temporal fossa, infratemporal fossa will be seen in the skull. Where the skull is present in the cranial end of the axial skeleton. For descriptive purpose, skull will be studied in normals. Those are 5 in number. Okay. Skull studied from above is called as a norma verticalis. Skull studied from behind is called as a norma occipitalis. Skull studied from below is called as a norma basalis. Skull studied from in front is called as a norma frontalis. Skull studied from lateral view, this is called as a norma lateralis. From above is called as a norma verticalis. From behind it is called as a norma occipitalis. From below it is called as a norma basalis. From front it is called as a norma occipitalis, and from lateral view it is called as a norma lateralis. These are all the 5 views will be studied in the skull. And next, after removing the word, we are going to see the base of the skull. See, this is the norma lateralis view. The bones forming the norma lateralis view are frontal bone, parietal bone, greater wing of the sphenoid, temporal bone, occipital bone, zygomatic bone, maxilla, mandible. These are all the bones which will be forms the norma lateralis. Next, coming to this is the zygomatic arch. How the zygomatic arch? It is a palpable bony landmark which will be lies horizontally in between the temple region and cheek. Okay, it is present in between the temple region and cheek. How the zygomatic arch is formed? This zygomatic arch is formed by the temporal process of zygomatic bone. This is the zygomatic bone. Temporal process of zygomatic bone, and this is the frontal process of zygomatic bone. And next, this is the temporal bone. This is the zygomatic process of temporal bone. This temporal process of zygomatic bone and zygomatic process of temporal bone, both the bones fuse together, and this is a suture. This is called as a zygomatico-temporal suture. This is called as a zygomatico-temporal suture. These two bones unite together and forms a zygomatic arch. Above the zygomatic arch, this space is called as a temporal fossa. Below the zygomatic arch, this space is called as a infratemporal fossa. Okay. First, we are going to study about the temporal fossa. This is the temporal fossa. Temporal fossa is a shallow depression above the zygomatic arch. This is the zygomatic arch, which will be lies as a horizontal bar in the norma lateralis. Above the zygomatic arch, this is the temporal fossa. Coming to the boundaries of the zygomatic fossa. Coming to the boundaries of the temporal fossa. This is the temporal fossa is a shallow depression above the zygomatic arch. Above and behind. Above and behind. It is formed by the temporal lines. Okay, it is bounded above and behind by the temporal lines. This is the superior temporal line and this is the inferior temporal line. Okay, in front, it is formed by the posterior surface of the body of the zygomatic bone. Okay, it is formed by the posterior surface of the body of the zygomatic bone and adjoining greater wing of the sphenoid bone. Okay, these two will be forms the anterior boundary. Above it is formed by the temporal lines, and behind also it is formed by the temporal lines. Below it is formed by the zygomatic arch. Below it is formed by the zygomatic arch, and this is formed by the below it is formed by the supramastoid crust. Okay, these are the boundaries. And next, lateral wall. The lateral wall is formed by the temporal fascia. Lateral wall of the temporal fossa is bounded by the temporal fascia. This temporal fascia will be attached to the superior temporal line. This is the superior temporal line. And next, the inferior temporal line, which will be gives origin for the temporalis muscle. The inferior temporal line, which will be gives origin for the temporalis muscle. And next, coming to the medial wall or floor. This medial wall or floor is formed by the four bones. It is formed by the four bones. All the four bones are frontal bone, parietal bone, temporal bone, and greater wing of the sphenoid. All these four bones will fuse together. It meets at a point. This point is called as a pterion. This point is called as a pterion. This pterion point is important for the surgical. Okay, this is important. This is the pterion. Pterion is nothing but it is a meeting point between the frontal bone, parietal bone, temporal bone, and sphenoid. This H-shaped suture is called as a pterion. This H-shaped suture is called as a pterion. The horizontal limb of the suture is formed by the anterior-inferior angle of the parietal bone. See, this is the anterior-inferior angle of the parietal bone, and this is a posterior-inferior angle of the parietal. So, the anterior-inferior angle along with the tip of the sphenoid, which will be forms the horizontal suture. Okay, this H-shaped suture is called as a pterion. Pterion is nothing but it is a meeting place between the frontal bone, parietal bone, temporal bone, and sphenoid. Okay, it has some clinical importance because beneath the central point of the pterion, the anterior branch of middle meningeal artery will be lies. Anterior branch of middle meningeal artery will be lies in the central point of the pterion, beneath the pterion. Okay. See, this is the pterion. Again, coming to the behind the frontozygomatic suture, 3.5 centimeters behind the frontozygomatic suture, and next 4 centimeters above the zygomatic-temporal suture. This pterion will be lies behind 3.5 centimeters behind the frontozygomatic suture, whereas 4 centimeters above the zygomatic-temporal suture, the pterion will be lies. This is the point. Next, coming to the clinical importance of the pterion. If there is any fracture or trauma in the center of pterion, in the place of the pterion, there is a rupture of anterior branch of the middle meningeal artery. In case of the rupture of the anterior branch of middle meningeal artery, there is a epidural hematoma will be occurs. Epidural hematoma will be occurs. This is the clinical importance in the place of the pterion. Here it lies the anterior branch of middle meningeal artery. Next, coming to the infratemporal fossa. This is the infratemporal fossa. Where you are going to see the infratemporal fossa? Below the zygomatic arch. See, here we have cut in the zygomatic arch. It is an irregular space. It is an irregular space below the zygomatic arch. It is an irregular space below the zygomatic arch. This is an infratemporal fossa. Coming to the next, here there is a important for the passage of neurovascular structures. The main important feature here is the main important neurovascular structures. Those are maxillary artery and mandibular nerve and its branches will be seen in the temporal fossa. This is the infratemporal fossa. Next, coming to the boundaries of the infratemporal fossa. Above our roof is formed by the greater wing of the sphenoid. Roof is formed by the greater wing of the sphenoid. And next, below it is open. Okay, below it is open. Anteriorly by the posterior surface of the body of the maxilla. Anteriorly by the posterior surface of the body of the maxilla. Posteriorly by the mastoid process and styloid process. Posteriorly also it is open. It will be related with the styloid process. This is the styloid process and this is the mastoid process. Next, medial wall is formed by the lateral pterygoid plate. Medial wall is formed by the lateral pterygoid plate, whereas lateral wall is formed by the ramus of the man. These are the boundaries of the infratemporal fossa. Once again, we are repeating. Above our roof is formed by the greater wing of the sphenoid, and next below it is open, and next anteriorly it will be related with the posterior surface of the body of the zygomatic bone and adjoining greater wing of the sphenoid, and next behind all or posteriorly also it is open. It will be related with the styloid process and mastoid process. Medially, it is bounded with the lateral pterygoid plate, whereas laterally it will be bounded with the ramus of the mandible. This is the irregular space of the infratemporal fossa. Main contents in the infratemporal fossa, those are lateral pterygoid muscle, medial pterygoid muscle, and next lower part of the temporalis. Upper temporalis hardly you had seen in the temporal fossa, whereas incision will be inserted into the neck of the mandible. So here it will be legs. It will be inserted lower part of the temporalis muscle, also one of the content in the infratemporal fossa. Along with the three muscles, we are going to see the mandibular nerve and its branches, maxillary artery and its branches. Those are the contents in the infratemporal fossa. Those are the contents in the infratemporal fossa. And next, communication. Communication for it will be communicates with the orbit. Again, it will be communicates above with the temporal fossa. Again, it will be communicates medially with the middle cranial cavity. And next, also it will be communicates with the pterygopalatine fossa. Pterygopalatine fossa. Anteriorly, it will be communicates with the orbit. Anteriorly, it will be communicates with the orbit through inferior orbital fissure. Anteriorly, this infratemporal fossa will be communicates with the orbit through inferior orbital fissure. See here, this is the inferior orbital fissure. Here it is unable to show you. And next, above it will be communicates with the temporal fossa. Okay, medially it will be communicates with the pterygopalatine fossa through pterygomaxillary fissure. This is the pterygomaxillary fissure. Okay, and next again this infratemporal fossa will be communicates with the middle cranial cavity. See, it will be communicates with the middle cranial cavity through two foramens. This is a foramen ovale and this is a foramen spinosum. Okay, these two are the foramens, foramen ovale and foramen spinosum. These will be communicates the infratemporal fossa with the middle cranial cavity. Okay, this is about the infratemporal fossa. Contents here we had already had told you that maxillary artery and its branches, mandibular nerve, and next otic ganglion. All these will be the contents of the infratemporal fossa. Okay. Next, we are going to study about the mandible. This is the mandible. Already you had seen that this is the mandible in the normal lateralis. Coming to the anatomical position of the mandible. Mandible, where you are going to hold the mandible at the sides of the angle. Okay, this is the position for the mandible. Mandible is the only largest, strongest bone of the skull. It is the only movable bone in the skull. It is the largest, strongest, and only movable bone in the skull. And next, it consists of body. This is the body. This part is called as a body. And next, it has two oblong or rectangular shaped ramus. These two are the ramus. This is the body, and these two are the ramus. Body is horseshoe shaped, whereas ramus are oblong or rectangular in shape, which will be projects upwards. From the body. Next, first we are going to discuss in the lateral view. In the lateral view, the mandible will be studied in L shape. Okay, in the lateral view, the shape of the mandible is L shaped. This is the anterior view, this is the posterior view, and this is the lateral view. These are the three views of the mandible. First, we are going to study about the mandible. Body of the mandible. This is the body of the mandible. This body of the mandible is horseshoe shaped. The body of the mandible is horseshoe shaped. It consists of outer surface. This is the outer surface. Okay. And next, this is the outer surface. This is the inner surface. Coming to the external features of the body of the mandible, it consists of outer external surface, inner surface or coming to the outer surface. See, this is the outer surface of the mandible. It consists of two halves in the fetal line. It consists of two halves in the fetal line. These two halves of the body of the mandible will be fuses in the midline. It is a faint ridge. This is called as a symphysis mente. Symphysis mente is nothing but it is a faint ridge which will be lies in the upper part of the midline. Okay, this is the symphysis mente. Here, both the body of the mandible will be fuses together in the midline. This is the midline. It is called as a symphysis mente, which will be present in the upper part of the body of the mandible. And next, below that, here you are going to see a mental protuberance. This is a mental protuberance. Mental protuberance is nothing but in the lower half of the body of the mandible, in the midline. You are going to see a triangular shaped area. This triangular shaped area is called as a mental protuberance. See, upper angle of the mental protuberance, which will be forms the lower end of the symphysis mente. See, this is the upper angle and these two are the lower angles. This upper angle, which will be forms a lower end of the symphysis mente. And next, the two angles, which are called as a mental tubercles. These two are called as a mental tubercles. Those will be a small elevations. Those are the elevations on either side of the symphysis mente towards the base of the mandible. These two are called as a mental tubercles. Above the mental tubercle, there is a fossa below the incisor teeth. Below the incisor teeth. This is called as a incisive fossa. This is called as a incisive fossa. This incisive fossa will be gives attachment for the few slips of mentalis muscle, few slips of mentalis muscle, and a few slips of orbicularis oris muscle. In the incisive fossa, it will be gives attachment for the few slips of mentalis muscle and few slips of orbicularis oris muscle. This is the incisive fossa. And next, below the second molar teeth, below the second premolar teeth, there is a mental foramen. Just above the mental tubercle, just below the second premolar teeth, we are going to see a foramen. This is a mental foramen. This mental foramen passes the mental nerve and vessels. This mental foramen, which will be passes the mental nerve and vessels. Okay. And next, this is an oblique line. The oblique line, which will be extends from the anterior border of the ramus. See, this is the anterior border of the ramus of the mandible. It will be continuous downwards, forwards. It will be continuous downwards, forwards, and it will be reaches up to the mental foramen. So this is an oblique line. Okay, this oblique line, which will be gives attachment for the its anterior part or in front. It will be gives attachment for the here for the depressor labiae inferioris muscle. This is an oblique line. Okay, it's in front. It will be gives attachment for the depressor labiae inferioris, and next behind it will be gives attachment for the depressor angulae oris. Depressor angulae oris. And next towards the ramus, just behind the third molar teeth, it will be gives attachment for the buccinator muscle. Okay, these are the three muscles will be attached to the oblique line. In front by the depressor labiae inferioris, and next to that behind it will be gives attachment for the depressor angulae oris, and next behind that it will be gives attachment for the buccinator muscle. These three muscles will be attached to the oblique line, which will be the continuation from the anterior border of the ramus of the mandible up to the mental foramen. This is the mental foramen. This is the oblique line. These are the external features. See, these are the external features seen on the external surface of the body of the mandible. One is symphysis mente. It is a faint ridge which will be fuses the two halves of the body, and next below that there is a mental protuberance, which is a triangular depression in the midline. And next, on either side of the midline, you are going to see a tubercle. These are the mental tubercles. Above the mental tubercle and below the second premolar teeth, you are going to see a mental foramen. Below the incisor teeth, there is a depression, small depression. It is called as a incisive fossa. This is the incisive fossa. Okay, these are all the features on the external surface of the body. Next, coming to the internal surface or inner surface of the body. This is the internal surface or inner surface of the body. See, this is a half of the body. Here, mainly, you are going to see a mylohyoid line. This is the mylohyoid line. This mylohyoid line will be extends from the just behind the third molar teeth. This is a mylohyoid line, and it will be extends up to the midline. It will be extends up to the midline. See here, it will be extends up to the midline just below the genial tubercles. Just below the genial tubercles and the digastric fossa. These are the digastric fossas. These two are the digastric fossas. See, above the mylohyoid line, there is a fossa. This is called as a sublingual fossa. This fossa is called as a sublingual fossa. Anterior part of the mylohyoid line, above that there is a fossa. This fossa is called as a sublingual fossa. In this sublingual fossa, the sublingual gland will be largest. In the sublingual fossa, sublingual gland is present. And posterior part of the mylohyoid line, below the posterior part of the mylohyoid line, there is another fossa. It is called as a submandibular fossa. This is the submandibular. In this submandibular fossa, submandibular gland, salivary gland, submandibular salivary gland is present. Superficial part of the submandibular salivary gland is present. Along with that, some submandibular lymph nodes will also present here. This is the mylohyoid line, which will be extends from the just behind the third molar teeth, and it will be extends up to the midline, below the genial tubercle, just above the digastric fossa. This is the mylohyoid line. This mylohyoid line will be gives attachment for the mylohyoid muscle. This mylohyoid line, which will be gives attachment for the mylohyoid muscle. The anterior part of the just above the anterior part of the mylohyoid line, you are going to see a sublingual fossa. In this sublingual fossa, you are going to see a sublingual gland. And next, posterior part below the mylohyoid line, this is the submandibular. In this submandibular fossa, you are going to see the superficial part of the submandibular salivary gland, and next, and submandibular lymph nodes. Submandibular lymph nodes. And again, it will be related with the loop of the facial artery. From here, it will be binds onto the base, and it will be enters into the external surface, and it will be enters into the external surface as a facial artery. This is the facial artery. And next, these are the in the midline, in the inner surface of the midline. Here you are going to see a irregular elevations, two superior genial tubercles and two inferior genial tubercles. See here, this is a superior genial tubercles, and these two are the inferior genial tubercles. These two superior genial tubercles, which will be gives attachment for the genioglossus muscle. This two superior genial tubercles, which will be gives also for the genioglossus muscle. This inferior genial tubercles, which will be gives attachment for the geniohyoid muscle. Geniohyoid muscle. Genial tubercles are nothing but irregular elevations on the inner surface, in the midline. In the inner surface of the midline, you are going to see two superior genial tubercles and two inferior genial tubercles. Superior genial tubercles will be gives attachment for the genioglossus, whereas inferior genial tubercles for the geniohyoid muscle. And next, this is about the inner surface of the body. And next, behind the third molar teeth, and posterior part of the mylohyoid. In between these two, you are going to see a lingual nerve. Lingual nerve will be related between the third molar teeth and posterior part of the mylohyoid. In between this, you are going to see a lingual nerve. Next, just behind the third molar teeth, again here we are going to see one muscle, that is a superior constrictor muscle of pharynx on the mylohyoid line, the posterior most part of the mylohyoid line, which will be gives attachment for the superior constrictor muscle. It is a muscle of the pharynx. Superior constrictor muscle, it is a muscle of the pharynx. In between the third molar teeth and superior constrictor muscle of pharynx, in between these two, you are going to see one fascia, that is nothing but pterygomandibular ligament. It is nothing but pterygomandibular raphe. This is the pterygomandibular raphe. This pterygomandibular raphe is nothing but buccopharyngeal fascia, thickening of the buccopharyngeal fascia, which will become a pterygomandibular raphe. It is present in between the behind the third molar teeth, in between the buccinator and superior constrictor muscle. This is the pterygomandibular. This is about the inner surface of the body of the mandible. And next, coming to the borders. It consists of two borders, upper border and lower border. Upper border is also called as an alveolar arch or alveolar border. Lower border of the mandible is called as a base of the mandible. Upper border or alveolar border, lower border or base of the mandible. Coming to the upper border consists of sockets. It consists of sockets. It lodges the mandibular tooth. It lodges the mandibular tooth. It lodges the roots for the mandibular tooth. We know the formula of the tooth. Those are 2 plus 1 plus 2 plus 3. First two are incisors, next one is canine, and next two are premolars, and next three are molars. Incisors, canine 1, premolars 2, molars 3. These are the tooth which will be lies in the upper border. Okay, next below, lower border or base. This is the lower border or base. This lower border or base, which will be extends from midline, which will be runs backwards laterally, It will be gives attachment for the investing layer of deep cervical fascia, base of the mandible or lower border of the mandible, which will be gives attachment for the investing layer of deep cervical fascia. Along with that, it will be gives attachment for the platysma muscle. This is one of the neck muscle. Platysma muscle will be gets inserted here in the base of the mandible. See, this is about the body of the mandible. It consists of two surfaces, two borders. External surface, internal surface, and next upper border, an alveolar border, lower border or base. Next, coming to the ramus. Ramus. This is the ramus of the mandible. This ramus of the mandible, which will be projects upwards from the body. The shape of the ramus is oblong or rectangular in shape. Body is 1, whereas ramuses are 2 for the mandible. The two ramus, which will be projects on either side of the body, which will be projects upwards. The shape of the ramus is rectangular or oblong in shape. It consists, coming to the external features of the ramus, it consists of anterior border. This is the anterior border. And next, this is the posterior border. This is the upper or superior border, and this is the lower or inferior border. Anterior border, posterior border, superior border, and inferior border. Next, two surfaces. It consists of two surfaces. This is the internal surface. This is the external surface. This is the internal surface, and this is the external surface. First, we are going to discuss about the borders. It consists of anterior border. Anterior border is thin and sharp. It is thin and sharp. This anterior border will be continuous upwards as a triangular shaped projection. Okay. And this anterior border, which will be gives attachment for the insertion of the temporalis muscle. The anterior border of the ramus of the mandible, which will be gets inserted. See here, it will be gets inserted for the temporalis muscle. And next, coming to the posterior border. The posterior border is thick, whereas anterior border is thin. The posterior border is thick. This posterior border, which will be related upper part of the posterior border, will be related with the parotid gland. The upper border of the posterior border, upper part of the posterior border, which will be related with the parotid gland. And next, junction between the posterior border and lower border of the body. This is called as an angle of the mandible. Junction between the lower border of the body of the mandible and posterior border of the ramus of the mandible. This is called as an angle of the mandible. The angle of the mandible will be in 140 degrees. The angle of the mandible will be nearly 140 degrees. Next, coming to the superior border. This is a superior border. In the superior border, you are going to see two processes. One is coronoid process. This one is condylar process. Anterior one or in front, it is called as a coronoid process, and posterior one is called as a condylar process. In between the two processes, you are going to see a notch. This is called as a mandibular notch. Through this mandibular notch, the auriculotemporal nerve and vessels will be passes through this. Sorry, mesenteric nerve and vessels will be passes through this. This is the mandibular notch. This mandibular notch is present between the coronoid process and condylar process. Coronoid process is nothing but it is the continuation of the anterior border as a tongue-like projection. It consists of apex, anterior border, and posterior border. All this border along with its apex, which will be gives attachment for the insertion of temporalis. And next, coming to the condylar process. This is the condylar process. This condylar process will be articulates with the temporal fossa of temporal bone. This condylar process will be articulates with the temporal fossa of temporal bone to form a temporomandibular joint. This condylar notch will be expand side to side. This condylar process is expanded side to side. It consists of head. Expanded one is called as head. Below the head, there is a constricting part. This part is called as a neck. The head will be articulates with the temporal notch of temporal bone, which will be forms a temporomandibular joint. And next, coming to the below the head, there is a constricting part. This part is called as a neck. This neck will be gives attachment for the capsular ligament. The neck will be gives attachment for the capsular ligament. On the lateral surface of the neck, which will be gives attachment for the lateral ligament of temporomandibular joint. Lateral ligament of temporomandibular joint. Here it will be gives attachment for the lateral ligament of temporomandibular joint to the neck. And next, inferior border is nothing but angle of the mandible, which will be forms between junction between the lower border of the body and posterior border of the ramus of the mandible. This is the posterior border, which will be forms the angle of the mandible. It is 140 degrees. Next, coming to the surfaces. It has two surfaces. External surface. This is the external surface and this is the internal surface. See, on the external surface, the posterior superior part along with the posterior border, which will be related with the parotid gland, and rest of the external surface, which will be gives attachment for the masseter muscle. rest of the surface of lateral surface of the ramus of the mandible, which will be gives attachment for the masseter. On the lateral surface, we are going to see the lateral surface is related with parotid gland and masseter muscle. Next, coming to the inner surface of or medial surface of the ramus of the mandible. Just above the center point of the ramus of the mandible, we are going to see a foramen. This foramen is called as a mandibular foramen. Through this mandibular foramen, it will passes the inferior alveolar nerve. It is a branch of the mandibular nerve. And next, this mandibular foramen passes through the body inner surface of the body as a canal. This canal is called as a mandibular canal. Foramen will be leads to a canal. This mandibular foramen will be leads to the inner surface of the body as a canal. This canal is called as a mandibular canal. Through this mandibular canal, it passes the inferior alveolar nerve and vessels. This mandibular canal will be opens externally onto the mental foramen through the mental foramen. So the inferior alveolar nerve here it will be divides and it will give two branches. One is mental nerve and vessels, whereas another one is incisive vessels and nerve. This mental nerve and vessels will be comes out through this mental foramen from the inner surface to external surface. It will be passes. Inferior alveolar nerve will be give branch for mental nerve, which will be comes out to the mental foramen. And next, these incisive vessels will be supplied to the reaches up to the incisive fossa, and here it will be supplied to the gums of the incisive teeth. And next, behind that, you are going to see the groove. This is called as a mylohyoid groove. This is a mylohyoid groove. This mylohyoid groove, which will be gives attached with this mylohyoid groove, or just the mylohyoid vessels and nerves. This mylohyoid groove, which will be lodges the mylohyoid nerve and vessels. See, and next, this is a mylohyoid line. This is a mylohyoid line. Already we had discussed in the body. It will be arises from the third molar teeth. And next, at the mandibular foramen, there is a tongue-shaped projection. See here, there is a tongue-shaped projection. This tongue-shaped projection is called as a lingula. This tongue-shaped projection is called as a lingula, which will be triangular in shape. See here, it is very prominent. See, this is a tongue-shaped projection. It is called as a lingula. This lingula will be gives attachment for the spinomandibular ligament. Spinomandibular ligament will be attached to the tip of the lingula. Already you had studied about the attachment of the superior constrictor muscle. In between this mylohyoid groove and base of the mandible or posterior border. In between these two, we are going to see for the origin of the medial pterygoid muscle. This is the origin for the medial pterygoid muscle. In between the mylohyoid groove and angle of the mandible, here you are going to see a origin for the medial pterygoid muscle. And next, one thing here we have forgotten, in front of the head of the condylar process, we are going to see a fossa or fovea. It is called as a pterygoid fovea. This pterygoid fovea will be gives insertion of the lateral pterygoid muscle. This is also called as a pterygoid fovea. Neck, on the inner surface of the neck will be related with the maxillary artery and auriculotemporal nerve. Medial medial surface of the neck of the mandible will be related with the auriculotemporal nerve and maxillary artery. This is about the ramus of the mandible. And next, difference between the old age bone and young bone. Young mandible, this is the young mandible and this is the old mandible. See here, what is the main difference here? This mental foramen will be, see here first, this mental foramen will be lies below the second molar teeth, below the second molar teeth. This mental foramen will be lies in midway between the upper border and lower border. This mental foramen is present in between the upper alveolar border and base or lower border. It is present in between, midway between the upper border and lower border. Whereas in the old age, this mental foramen will be lies towards the upper border. Whereas in the old age, this mental foramen will be lies towards the upper border or alveolar border. Because why? Because the tooth will be lost, whereas alveolar border is absorbed in the old age. Tooth will be lost, whereas the alveolar border will be absorbed, so that the mental foramen will be towards the alveolar border. And next, coming to the coronoid process and condylar process. Those will be lies in a same plane. The coronoid process and condylar process will be lies in a same plane. Whereas in children, the coronoid process is higher level than the condylar process. In the children, the coronoid process will be lies higher in position than the condylar process. Whereas in old age, the head will be bends more vertically. In the old age, the head will be bends backwards, and the angle will be averted. The angle of the mandible will be averted. It will be reaches up to 170 degrees in old age. And here we are unable to see the symphysis membrane. It is not clear. Whereas in young birds, it will be clear. This is the symphysis membrane, tension between the two halves of the body in the upper part of the midline. These are the differences here between old age bone and young bone. Main one is mental foramen, whereas this mental foramen will be lies in the middle in adult bones, whereas in old age bones it will be lies towards the upper border. Next, coming to the ossification, it is the second most bone which will be ossified. It is a membranous ossification, which will be starts ossification in second week, sixth week of intrauterine life. 6th week of intrauterine life. It is a membranous ossification. It will be enveloped by the Meckel's cartilage. And next, coming to the fractures. Most commonly fractures occurs at the near to the socket of incisors. And next, common fracture at the angle. First most common fracture at the incisor, and next one is between the angle of the mandible. This is the common sites. And next one is head or condylar process will be dislocates into the infratemporal fossa. While blowing, it will be moves. The head will be moves into the infratemporal fossa of the mandible. It's about